Grab your neighbor and pull up a chair, 'cause we got a lot to say about the world out there at the Humpday Exchange today. Oh, yeah.
Good evening and welcome to Humpday Exchange. I'm stepping in for Elizabeth tonight, who's unfortunately under the weather, so we're sending her lots of love, good vibes, and hoping she's back with us soon. But as always, I'm joined with our host, Michael. Woo! And tonight is a big night for Humpday Exchange. We're hosting our very first debate focused on Congressional District 2. This is your opportunity to hear directly from the candidates, learn where they stand on issues that matter to you, and ask real questions in real time. So with that, let's get started. Please join us in welcoming our Congressional District 2 candidates, Brandon Wade and Erik Terwey. Before we dive in, we want to hear from you, so please drop any questions you have for the candidates in the comments. We'll be collecting those and getting to them later in the session. But to kick things off tonight, we're going to decide who goes first with the coin flip, and Michael is going to flip the coin for us. Brandon, since you've been our first guest here on Humpday Exchange, heads or tails?
Heads.
Got tails.
Tails. All right, Mr. Terwey. Let's start with the opening question here. It gets 2 minutes each, so we'll start with you. What future are you fighting for, and who taught you to fight for it?
So I'm fighting for a future where no child goes to bed hungry, where no family fears bankruptcy from a medical emergency, where no one's criminalized for their poverty or their identity, and where we leave our children a livable planet, not a climate catastrophe. But before I tell you what I'm fighting for, let me tell you who taught me how to fight. It was my teachers who showed me what was possible. They were the ones who stayed up late to help me understand not just science or French, but justice itself. They taught me that education isn't just about information, it's about transformation. They showed me that asking why isn't disrespectful, it's essential. My teachers didn't just teach me to accept the world as it is, they taught me to imagine what could be and then to organize to make it real. They taught me that change doesn't come from hoping that politicians will do the right thing, it comes from movements that force them to. So what future am I fighting for? I'm fighting for economic justice, where a full day's work means a living wage. I'm fighting for criminal justice. I'm fighting for healthcare as a human right, Medicare for all. I'm fighting for educational opportunity for everyone, universal pre-K through college, fully funded public schools, student debt cancellation, and teachers paid what they're worth, because education unlocked everything for me, and it should for every child. I'm fighting for a livable planet, and I'm fighting for full and total equality under the law. This future isn't radical, it's practical. It's what every wealthy nation provides its people. The question isn't whether we can afford it. The question is who benefits from telling us we can't. My teachers taught me to ask that question. And tonight, I'm asking you to fight alongside me to answer it together.
Perfect. Love it. Thank you, Mr. Terwey. Mr. Wade.
All right. What I'm fighting for, the future that I'm fighting for, is a future where the American dream can thrive. One where the working class can flourish. One where they can have enough money to put back to live with dignity, and also put our children through college and not have to worry about a health illness that ends up bankrupting us and not having the money to live on. What I'm looking for to do is help provide where the working class and the American people and Oklahomans have a say in their government again. One where it's not just the corporations that have those says. For far too long, we have been down this road where corporations have took over our government. They now run our country. They are the ones that spell out everything that gets done and how things work. We must now provide where we have that voice back, where wages start regaining and we start making the gap in between the wealthy CEOs and the working class. We have got to do that. To do that, I have been taught by the people that I've been around. I have for a long time been a member of the working class. I come from a long list of working class people in my family. I have been a union member, so I understand, and those are the people who have taught me how to fight for these values, how to fight for safe working conditions and better wages, and fight for the people who need those wages. So I stand for those reasons, and I will always fight for the working class and the people that need those things. Fighting for our Constitution to be restored and have actual Congress again, where we have 3 separate branches of government. Those are the things that we need back in this country. Our government has long been took over by the wealthy and the corporations, and we're not represented by a true government anymore, where we have 3 equal branches who check and balance everybody. There needs to be accountability, and we need to protect our Constitution and uphold the laws and every right that's within that Constitution.
Excellent. Excellent. Thank you, Mr. Wade. Michael, you want to start off? And I think it'll be Brandon's first, goes first on this one.
Perfect. All right, Brandon.
This
So
is
the first
also,
que-
sorry, 60 seconds and potential 30-second rebuttal.
Perfect. All right. So the first question for you, Brandon, is: should Congress pass federal protections for LGBTQ Americans?
Sorry, say that one more time.
You're good. So, should Congress pass federal protections for LGBTQ Americans?
Absolutely. I mean, again, we must get to where our Constitution is represented. We should have, everybody is supposed to have representation and rights and protections under our Constitution. And I think that's where we have, as Congress members, both House and Senate, need to fight together and stand together to make the changes to where those are specified, where everybody has equal rights and are treated equally. We have certain groups that are unnecessarily treated differently and need to be upheld in the ways that things are being done. So we have to, that needs to be done by Congress. Yes, we need to put rights in place that protect these groups.
Perfect. Same question goes to you, Eric.
Yeah, of course. As a member of that group myself, I can list the ways in which, we are discriminated against both at the state level and at the federal level. We know that minority groups are not just handed rights in this country. They have to be taken, from the majority. They have to, have allies who will stand beside them and help them achieve equality in those fights. And so, I think that it's time that we do this. It's long past time that we protect, every minority group. But if we're talking about this one specifically, for sure, I know exactly how this group suffers. I've been there. I've done that. And it's time to protect.
Mr. Wade, do you have a rebuttal?
I don't know how, no, not really a rebuttal. I mean, because I think Eric and I agree in this situation, in the stance on this, that these rights need to be fought and protected. And, I have family members and people that are also from this community, and that these rights must be protected. We cannot allow hate in this country to continue to grow and separate us and divide us. That's the problem in our country right now, is far too much hate, and we must start protecting these rights and standing up for people. Regardless of how you feel or your views, we must protect everybody's rights and fight for them.
Perfect. Thank you. Moving on, I will go ahead and start with Mr. Terwey. Again, it's 60 seconds, and you do get a 30-second rebuttal if needed. Do you believe Congress is functioning effectively right now? And what would you do differently if elected?
I don't think that Congress is functioning effectively right now. I don't think it's functioning at all. First, you've got to have, a leadership in place that is willing to discharge their duties. These people took an oath of office that included defending our Constitution and upholding their branch of our government. That means standing up to the president when it's difficult, and they're not doing that. And so we've got to get better leadership elected. That means making sure that we have progressives elected coast to coast, border to border. That's important. That's step one. We need to make sure that Congress is not able to trade in the stock market. That's called corruption. So we got to get politicians out of money, and then we got to get money out of politics. We've got to pass a constitutional amendment that makes sure that one vote is one voice, not dollars are votes. And so that's another way that we can make Congress a functioning place again, when we ensure that the people who are represented there are the ones who are actually, who have the representative on the phone, who are affecting their decisions. That's how we affect change. That's how we get Congress moving again.
Perfect. Thank you, Mr. Terwey. Mr. Wade.
I totally agree. Our Congress is dysfunctional. It has been for a while now, and that is part of why I'm running for Congress. I believe that we need a change. We have to start electing leadership that is going to stand and fight and represent the people of our districts. I mean, you have people of the district that you're supposed to represent. You're supposed to be their voice, and you're supposed to vote in the ways that they want you to vote. And that is not happening right now for our representation. Jasper Keene does not do that. He does not represent the interests of Oklahoma CD2. He only follows in and does what he's told by the leader that he follows. And that is not what our Congress is set up to do. It is okay to disagree. It is okay to have different minds on things. It's okay to come together and work together for solutions that work best for all your constituents. Those are the things that our Congress has not done for a while now, and why I'm running for Congress. I want to get back to where we have a Congress that functions. We have two different sides that can come together and make solutions that work best for everybody, because that is how we truly come to solutions. As I said, doing things with unions and then negotiating contracts and things like that, I understand. To get agreements, you have to work with both sides and come to compromise sometimes that works for everybody for a greater solution. And representing our country and upholding your job duties when you get there, and putting term limits in place to where we don't get into this same rut over and over, because that's the problem we have. Money and corporations have bought these politicians, and they're there far too long.
Perfect. Mr. Terwey, any rebuttal?
No, I think, again, there's not a lot of difference here. It's just, Congress needs to get back to the job of representing people, and they are completely bought and paid for by corporations. So in order to make sure that that's not the case, we have to put in laws. We have to put in guardrails. It's clear that not having any regulation isn't effective. Just relying on corporations to do the right thing, to be good guys and good actors, great neighbors, and honest stakeholders is dangerous. We can't do that anymore. So we need a Congress who's brave, who's courageous, who's willing to be patriotic, stand up for the right thing.
Perfect. Thank you guys so much. Michael?
All right, Mr. Wade. So this is going to be a long question. So I think it's fitting for the times we're in. So should Congress reassert its constitutional authority over declarations of war and military actions? And what actions would you use for holding other Congress members accountable?
I think that, seeing what's going on in today's world has obviously showed us that Congress is not doing their job. So Congress is supposed to be the ones that decide if give the authorization to go to war. And what's going on, whether you want to cover it one way or say another way, the president wants to say this not exactly war, and he has the authority to say what he wants. That's only because he knows that Congress is not going to challenge him on anything. They're not going to stand up to him and say no. So yes, I don't know. We need to stand up and fight and do the things that Congress is supposed to do and do your job. As we was talking before, it's dysfunctional and not operating. The laws are there. They're plain and clear. And Congress needs to stand up and say, no, Mr. President, you do not have the authority to do this. And if you're not going to follow the laws, then we're going to do the things that we need to do, which should probably be impeachment being brought up and actually follow through with it.
Mr. Terwey?
Yeah, so I think it's clear that Congress needs to it needs to take back all of their constitutional powers. Until we, the people, decide otherwise, Congress needs to be doing exactly what we've written into our Constitution for them to do. And if they're unwilling to do that, it's time for them to get the hell out of Washington, D.C. and make room for those of us who will. When we look at what's happening with our interventions here in the Western Hemisphere, it's like we're trying to relive the Monroe Doctrine again. We do not own this half of the planet. And that's basically what the Trump administration is trying to say today. And so, we need Congress to step in and say, you cannot spend our money in Argentina. You cannot spend our money in Venezuela. You don't get to spend our money, shooting fishing boats in the Caribbean or the Pacific. You don't get to start forever wars in Latin America and then go off and die 5 years later because you're ancient as hell and sick. We know that to be true. So, we need a Congress who's willing to stand up and say, no, we are not having this anymore. And Josh Burkeen is a coward. We've seen that. He will not stand up for Oklahoma. We deserve better. You deserve so much better than him. And I think that either of, Brandon or I are so much better than Josh Burkeen on this.
Absolutely agreed. Mr. Wade, do you have a rebuttal?
Not just a rebuttal, really just to add to that. Yes, absolutely. We need to quit funding wars in other countries and quit sticking our nose into other countries. Until we can provide healthcare for all in our country and take care of our American citizens in this country and provide the basic things that we should have in this country, we don't need to be spending money overseas in any country or this hemisphere or others. We need to take care of our people here in this country first, and our veterans and our people that are homeless. And, it's just more of the same. Yes, our Congress needs to grow a backbone and stand up.
Couldn't agree more. I'll start. I guess I'm with Mr. Terwey, and you're starting with Mr. Wade, Michael. So I think that's kind of the rotation we got. So you kind of hit on this a little bit earlier, and I just kind of want to have time to expand on this because I think it's important. Should members of Congress be allowed to trade stocks? Why or why not?
No. And it's really simple. If you are trading stocks in Congress or on Wall Street, then you're going to be making decisions that directly affect how much money you're making. And when we have seen time and again that human beings are incapable as a group of resisting the urge forever, right? To not be corrupt, to not get involved in those kinds of schemes. It's too tempting for some people. And when they get to Washington, D.C., they fall into those traps, and then they become that corporate politician, that establishment politician, that disgusting swamp monster that we all despise, Republican, Democrat, Independent alike. I think that, goodness, I actually forgot the question. If you
Trade stocks allowed or not?
Yeah, trade stocks. Yeah, so we have to get politicians out of money because it's the money really with the corporations, the billionaire Epstein class. It's all of that is the cancer in our society. It's not gays. It's not religious minorities. It's not racial minorities. It's that money. We've got to get that out. Thanks for the assist there.
Excellent. Thank you so much. Mr. Wade?
Absolutely not. When you're elected to go to Congress, you're not elected to go there to make money off of stock trades or insider trading. It's a crime. Insider trading should not be allowed. It's not allowed for normal everyday people to have insider trading knowledge on things or pass laws or bills that benefit yourself and make profit. You're elected to go to office to represent the people. You're not elected to go to office to make millions of dollars. And far too many of our politicians do that. I don't believe Eric or myself are going to this job to become rich or become wealthy. We're going to this job to work for the working class and to be the voice that we need in this country. That's what we got to get to. And there needs to be term limits to limit this temptation from being done and end up getting to everybody. But it needs to be a law. We need to put a law in place to remove insider trading, because insider trading and selling stocks as a congressman is plain wrong, and it misguides your way and your vote. It should be eliminated and penalized.
Perfect. Mr. Terwey, any rebuttal?
Yeah, no, I agree completely. Not just penalized, but it's something that if they're caught doing, they should absolutely be punished, just like any everyday American. We have to get back to a system of government and justice where everybody is subject to the same laws. We have to get back to that point. Oh, and remember, I just want to say, there was somebody who placed a $400,000 bet on Maduro being captured in Venezuela. Don't you dare think that that wasn't somebody in our government. This is exactly the kind of bullshit that Congress is doing in Wall Street. And that's why Brandon and I both are against. I mean, it's that kind of thing, just not out loud. So.
Awesome. Thank you, guys. Michael?
Are you muted? We can't hear you.
Yeah, I was supposed to. Okay. There you are.
Can hear you now.
Hold on. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. Sorry, technical difficulties. All right. So, first question. So, should the U.S. reduce its global military footprint?
Yeah, absolutely. We cannot, like I said, we got far too many things that we need to be doing in our country. And since money is what's holding us back on all that, or that's an excuse that we can't have the things we need, like healthcare for all, taking care of free college education, providing better lives for our U.S. citizens, then yes, we need to reduce the spending that we're doing by putting troops all over the world. We cannot be the world police. We need to take care of our own. And then if one of our allies are in need or are attacked, then yes, we need to do as we're supposed to under the NATO rules and help provide protection for that. But no, other than that, we don't need to be based all over the world and spending this kind of money. Our military budget is skyrocketing. It's getting ready to be over $1 trillion budget a year. And that money that we're spending for that could be reduced and pay for healthcare for all and those kind of things.
Perfect. All right, Mr. Terwey, same question for you. Should the U.S. reduce its global military footprint?
Providing our population with better security. We are not made any safer by gallivanting around the world, occupying different countries, overthrowing their governments, bombing their people, pissing off population after population after population. What we do is we breed terrorism abroad, and then they bring it to our shores. They kill Americans abroad. They kill them here at home. They wage terrorism against us, and they divide us up. And that's what our over-militarization has gotten us. We know the results of this game. This isn't a new question. This is an old game, and we're tired of playing it. So yeah, we need to reduce the amount of money we spend on our military. We need to modernize it. And then we need to bring our soldiers home. They need to defend our homeland. They are there to help our allies when needed. And that's all.
Perfect. Mr. Wade, do you have a rebuttal?
No, I mean, there's just more echoing the same. We need to better spend our money and feeding our children and taking care of the homeless situations in this country, providing healthcare for all, and better lives and better pay for our military, since we're talking about them. Instead of sending them all over the place, they need to be closer to their family and used when we're needed.
Perfect. All right. Oklahoma, do you have the next question?
I do. All right, Mr. Terwey. This is kind of a double-ended question. What is your stance on gun ownership and gun safety legislation, and where do you draw the line between rights and regulation?
So our Constitution does guarantee people the right to own guns. And until we pass a constitutional amendment otherwise, I believe that everybody has that right. So We can regulate that, though. We can make sure that we are making sure that that people who are in the right frame of mind have guns. We've already decided that certain people who are mentally unwell can't do X, Y, or Z. And I don't think that having a constitutional amendment that guarantees that you have that right necessarily means that also applies to those who are mentally unwell. So I think that regulation is absolutely appropriate. We shouldn't have assault weapons, and we shouldn't have high rounds of those magazines that hold an incredible amount of rounds. We shouldn't have weapons of war on our streets. We don't need that. But again, our Constitution guarantees the right to bear arms. And until we as a society decide otherwise, again, I stand with our Constitution. It is what ensures our society as it is. And until that document changes, yes, I do support the right for people to bear arms.
Perfect. Thank you so much. Mr. Wade, I'll repeat the question. What is your stance on gun ownership and gun safety legislation, and where do you draw the line between rights and regulation?
Okay, I'll start with my stance on gun ownership. I look back to my childhood growing up and my dad teaching me how to handle a firearm. I believe that if you're going to own a firearm, you got to have accountability and responsibility with that firearm. You need to respect that firearm. We need to have training courses and classes that teach people how to be a good, responsible gun owner. You need to lock your firearm up. It needs to be protected and kept away from being used in a crime or to be took by somebody that doesn't have any need for it and harm themselves or somebody else. Those are things that we need to do. So there needs to be better things put in place, simple things, the universal background checks and those kind of things. I stand for the Second Amendment. I am a supporter of the Second Amendment, but there's common sense that comes into play here. Not everybody, just because of the Second Amendment, not everybody has the right to own a firearm. We take them away if you're a criminal, you're NFL, and you don't have the right to have a firearm. If you're mentally handicapped in ways where you shouldn't have a firearm, then that needs to be removed as well. If a police officer goes into a domestic, we need to make laws where if a police officer, red flag laws, where if they go into a domestic dispute in a household, and they decide they're not taking either party to jail that night, but they feel that the hostilities inside there and they see a firearm. They're not openly looking for one, but if they see one out, they can remove that firearm until cooler heads can prevail. We need these common sense things to be put in place, and we need people to be responsible gun owners. Most people in Oklahoma are, just as I am, they want to be a responsible gun owner. Most people believe in being responsible gun owners. It's the ones that don't that cause the problems, and we need to protect those, and we need to protect our citizens from being hurt from irresponsible gun ownership.
Perfect. Thank you. Sir Terwey, any rebuttal?
No. I mean, again, I think it's common sense that can prevail here. We know that our Constitution says that we have the right to own guns, but what those guns look like, how many rounds they hold, how old you have to be before you're of age, we can set the regulations. We can make sure that, the vast majority of Americans have access to these protections if they so choose, but that the wrong people are kept from them.
Perfect. Thank you, gentlemen. Michael?
We have time for one more question before moving to the second segment. Sorry.
All right. So, Mr. Wade, how would you hold presidents accountable for unauthorized military actions?
I think with what I said before, we need to do our job in Congress. If they do illegal acts, then we need to look at the impeachment and follow through with that process. Not just impeachment, but they need to be impeached. We need the other chamber to do the job and actually prosecute and remove them from office.
Perfect. Same question goes to you, Mr. Terwey. How would you hold presidents accountable for unauthorized military actions?
Yeah, I think that, that's the power that Congress has, is to investigate illegal activity by the other branches of government and if they are found to have committed a crime, to hold them accountable. And that's exactly what Brandon was talking about. This president has definitely come as close to being as impeached as anybody could be without him being impeached. And so I absolutely would support that. We don't need him in office anymore. It's clear that this man is himself unwell. We wouldn't hand someone like him a gun these days. Why in the hell have we given him our nuclear codes?
Excellent. All right.
Rebuttal?
No, not really. I mean, I believe we're absolutely together on this situation, that anybody, regardless of who it is president, if they're not following the laws, then, or even in Congress or the judicial system, any of the branches, if they're not following the law, they need to be held accountable, just like anybody else should be held accountable if they don't follow the law.
Perfect. I did gather some questions from the chat earlier throughout this call so far. Michael, if you wouldn't mind grabbing any more that might come through. I'll keep this rotation going. This was asked by a viewer earlier before the call, or before this live. Mr. Terwey, do you believe executive orders are being overused? What limits, if any, would you support? And what would that look like?
Yeah, so I absolutely think that there are too many executive orders happening right now, and it's because the president has co-opted Congress. And so Congress needs to step in, and when the president does something illegal, they need to, like I said, investigate it or just pass a law. You can override a president. We've given Congress that ability. They can do anything they want as long as they stand unified against this authoritarian. And so I think that there are some really important alliances starting to form in Congress now, especially in the House. You see that over the Epstein files. There are people who are beginning to realize that the MAGA movement is kind of bullshit, and America First was always just a con to get their votes. And so, we have these alliances that are coming together. We have people in Congress who are willing to advance a populist agenda. And I think that, if they're all united, they can stand up to a president for sure. And that's what we're gonna need to do.
Perfect. Thank you. Mr. Wade, I'll repeat the question. Do you believe executive orders are being overused? What limits, if any, would you support, and what would that look like?
I believe not just this president. This president has passed several more executive orders than previous presidencies, but I think they can be overused by many presidents. And again, if it's something that's outside or that's going to hinder rights or go outside of their powers, then Congress should stand up and do something to change that.
Perfect. Michael, did you grab any?
I grabbed one I actually wanted to actually know about, so I'm glad somebody asked that in the comments. So, would you support a domestic violence registry in Oklahoma?
What that was a domestic violence? What? Sorry.
Domestic violence registry, kind of like a sex offender registry, but for domestic violence.
Absolutely. I think we need to start taking domestic violence more serious. There needs to be stiffer penalties with that. It's a hate crime. It's a violent crime, and it needs to be handled and took care of. So yes, I would support that.
Perfect. Same question goes to you, Mr. Terwey. Would you support a domestic violence registry?
Yeah, the same way that we want to know if we've got sex offenders living in our neighborhood. I want to know if I have somebody who beats their children living on my street. I want to know if I have someone who beats, their partner living on my street. I want to know that. And I think that that's something that, I don't have to hate that person, but I do want to maybe avoid them, because I don't have respect for people who beat children. I was beaten as a child myself. And that's not something that I'm going that I'm going to get over in my lifetime. And so I hold those people to a really high standard. Yeah, I want to know where they live. I don't want to live anywhere near them.
Perfect.
This one came through in the chat, and you can expand on this however you'd like. But the question was, and I'll start with you, Mr. Terwey, what would you do about the Turning Point USA infiltrating our schools? And you can kind of expand on that.
So there is a great democratic organization that is a counterpoint to Turning Point. That is a wonderful Constitution loving. God, I wish I could remember the name of it off the top of my head. I promise I will link it somewhere soon. But that's one thing that we can start magnifying. We need to be getting the word out about that organization because it does all the things that we want to do in schools today. And I think that there's a lot with all the attention on Turning Point USA. I think that it's the moment for us to really get behind an alternative organization, while strike while the iron's hot type of a thing. So I think that that's what we have to do because student organizations are going to exist. I'm not going to sit here and say, well, we can't have that in our schools, because if students want it, it's their right to organize. We have the right to assemble. That's your First Amendment right. And so, as much as I would never want to belong to that group, I also started a sewing group at a school that I was a teacher at. Not everybody wanted to be there either, so it's going to vary. But I think that we magnify those organizations that are important to us and that do the work we want to do with those youngsters.
Perfect. Thank you. Mr. Wade, I'll repeat the question. What would you do about Turning Point USA infiltrating our schools?
Again, I feel that the freedom that we have within our Constitution, you got to be careful what you try to limit. If you limit one thing or you allow one thing, then you're opening the door for the others to be done the same way. Just because you don't have the same view that this group does, if you have an organization that you're trying to start and you're trying to get into the students and view that point and get them on board, change their mind scope, their futures, you would be eliminating yourself as well if you fought against that. We just need to challenge it and open people's minds and, embody the embracement of challenging that in a peaceful way, their views and how it is, and try to open other minds, to look at other options and other ways and other points of views.
Perfect. Thank you. Michael, did you grab another one?
I got another one. I got a really good one. Okay, so once you are a representative, what committees would you like to be on and why?
There's several. Being that my dad's a veteran and I serve on the Oklahoma Democratic Party's Veterans Federation, the Veterans Affairs would be one that I'd like to be involved in. I'd like to be able to do so much more for our veterans. I feel like we don't do near enough for the people that put so much and put all of their lives in some cases out there, and their families are left behind as well and not given the things that they need to be given or provided for the sacrifices that we all make as military families or as military personnel. So Veterans Affairs would be probably first and foremost one of the ones I want to do. Then education, the Department of Education, something with over that, or where we have guidance or I can't think of what it's exactly called, but our government guidance, accountability things, oversight committee, I guess is what it is.
Perfect. Mr. Terwey, same question for you. Once you are a representative, what committees would you like to be on and why?
Yeah, I think that, being a former union teacher, education is first and foremost on my plate. Anything having to do with that, appropriations is, of course, the most powerful of all of them. You'd want to be on that, but being freshmen, it's very unlikely that we would get such a plum position like that. So, rural CD2 is rural and it is very heavily populated by Native American populations. So making sure that I'm sitting on Indian affairs, that's something that would be very, very helpful, I think, to the people who live here. Commerce department, that's something that deals with broadband, and that's something that matters here in rural CD2. So, those are the kinds of things that I would be looking at.
Perfect. All right, Oklahoma, do you have any questions? Grab any more.
Yeah, I've got another one. This one was actually asked before our live tonight. Mr. Terwey, how would you protect Oklahoma's workers' rights to organize and collectively bargain?
Yeah, we have eroded at every state level the rights for unions to bargain, and that's why we have to have a federal law that says unions have a right to exist in every single state across this country. As soon as we saw the right to work, right to work, basically the death of union laws across the country, that's when we saw real wages start to decline. They had been pretty flat since the 70s, but we've seen a real decline in buying power of the American consumer. And it's directly related to the fact that our unions are not able to fight for workers on a broad scale any longer. We used to have over 30% participation across our workforce. It's something less than like 10% today. And that's a very, very, very difficult position for our working class to find itself, because if we can't collectively bargain, then it's every corporation against the little guy. And when we band together, it's every corporation kissing our ass. And that's what we deserve. So yeah, we're going to empower unions. We're going to break up corporations. We're going to reintroduce antitrust. We've got a whole long list. And it's not going to stop with this, with this election. Trust me.
Mr. Wade?
Well, we would start by making sure that right to work laws go away. They're not needed and should not be allowed to be in place. Everybody has the right to form and assemble a union. We need to strengthen our labor board and give back strength back to our labor boards that's been took away from them, to allow them to oversight workers and uphold fair and free elections to organize and become unions. I look like we need to enforce the ability for unions to grow strong if they need them, and they're not needed in all places. So corporations that take care of their employees probably don't need a union there. The ones that are not taking care of their employees, that's when unions become and they form. So they're needed, and they're needed when they're needed in places they become that way. We need to remove the right to work law, and that needs to go away. That would be the first thing I would do, is remove right to work.
Perfect. Michael?
All right. So I just saw one that just come in. Will you be raising minimum wage?
Raising minimum wage on the federal level, I think we must do that on the federal level. Hopefully Oklahomans get out to vote in the primary. This is a good time. It's on the ballot. Oklahomans can try to decide to raise the minimum wage here in Oklahoma. Use your voice, use your votes, turn out to vote to do that. But because we can't rely on the states to do the right thing as well, on the federal level, we need to pass that law and set the minimum wage. That way, Oklahoma, if they don't get out and vote and do that, has to follow suit.
Perfect. Same question goes to you, Mr. Terwey. Would you support raising the minimum wage?
Yeah, of course. 7 and change is slave wages. And that's not something that I think any of us should be tolerating in the United States. That's why it's so important for everybody to show up in June here in Oklahoma on June 16th to vote for a minimum wage hike here in Oklahoma, to make sure that we're not dependent upon the hawks in Washington to do the right thing. We'll just do the right thing for ourselves, because we know this is wrong. And we're going to show up to the polls and tell them it's immoral to pay this kind of wage. We're going to raise it to 15. It should be 20. We should be looking at a 25 minimum wage, but we'll settle for this now. We're taking more later. You're put on notice, and in June, it starts.
Perfect. And I think all right. right, I will pass it off to Oklahoma.
I think we may only have time for one more question. Elisa, is that right? Or are we still doing good?
That 15 minutes.
Yeah, about one more question on this segment.
Okay. This was asked in the chat. I don't feel like it was fully completed question, so you can expand on whatever you'd like. Mr. Terwey, what do you see as the impact of Venezuela with them being the lead in oil production?
Okay, so I actually saw that coming across. They were talking about ConocoPhillips in there. That's a huge oil producer here in our district. And in fact, I live in Bartlesville, where they're located. Brandon works a mere block away from where they're headquartered here. So, this is a very real thing for all of us. We know that we were going in for oil. We know what this means for our country. And I think that for our region, we want to be careful because while we're dependent on energy and fossil fuel energy, we don't want to be the kind of people who support forever wars abroad just because we pump our own energy out of the ground here. I know that we have this affinity for the oil and natural gas, industry because they have taken care of our communities for a long time, or so we thought. But it turns out, our water's poisoned and our air is unbreathable in many places, and people have cancer. And oh, hey, yeah, fossil fuels are killing our whole planet. So, I think we need to relook at our relationship with different industries. We need to be attracting the ones that matter, for the future. And I think that Venezuela puts that front and center. This makes it even more of a problem for our district than maybe other districts.
Perfect. Thank you, Mr. Wade. Same question. What do you see as the impact of Venezuela with them being the lead in oil production?
Well, to me, it's showing us again we're going into something for the wrong reasons. I mean, we're going into this, and solely, you cannot convince me any other reason why we're going into this is ConocoPhillips here in Bartlesville and their claim to their ownership of the oil down there and things with the wells. It's big oil companies that have put our government, bought and paid for our politicians, and even the president of the United States to do these kind of things so they can get power in those countries and have that oil. So just as like when I was graduating in 95, the wars that was going on there that we had no business being involved in, it was over oil as well. And so we have got to quit allowing our country to go to those countries to try to change the bad leadership they have, which, don't get me wrong, the leadership there was horrible and not great to the people. But to overthrow a country basically for sole purposes of getting control of it so we can get the oil situation set up, and then to make our taxpayer dollars pay for Phillips and other places to go in there and redo the oil industry in that country is wrong, and it's costing the people of CD2 money. When we have farmers and ranchers that are going bankrupt and going to lose their farms to corporations when they come in and buy them up because we won't put our money back into our own country and our own people here in CD2.
Excellent. Thank you, Mr. Wade. So next we are going to do rapid fire questions. Michael's going to go first. He's going to list off quite a few questions, and this is just a simply yes or no. And what we'll do is we'll just answer, as soon as you hear the question and you want to answer at that time. We're not going to wait on you yes or no, just straight flat out fire, rapid fire questions. So I'll let Michael take off with it.
Perfect. All right. So do you support term limits for Congress members?
Yes.
Perfect. Do you support codifying marriage equality for federal law?
Yes.
Yes.
Perfect. Should protesters be protected from excessive policing at federal level?
Absolutely.
Perfect. Should fossil fuel companies pay for climate damage?
Yes.
Should marijuana be legalized federally?
Yes.
Yeah.
Should social media algorithms be regulated by federal government?
Yes.
Perfect. And that is the end of my rapid fire. So, Oklahoma, I'll let you take it off.
Before she does, each candidate should have 30 seconds to say if there's anything in those questions that you want to expand on. Does that make sense? So if any of the questions that he asked, you would like to expand a little bit more about what you meant by your yes? Because straight across the board, you guys were all yeses. So is there, if you want, each one of you has an option to do a 30-second each. This is what, if there's anything in there you want to clarify or add to.
I don't think there's anything I would clarify. I would say, if you had asked me something about like, would you defund ICE? My answer is absolutely yes. Ban assault weapons, yes. Repeal the Hyde Amendment, yes. So if you need more things to add to maybe find a difference, there are. I want reparations, yes. But to go deeper, I think that he and I are probably pretty aligned on a lot of those issues.
Yeah, I can say yes to each of those that you say as well there. I mean, I think we could evolve reasons why we say yes on different things, like the marijuana. I believe, yes, it needs to be federally made where it's legal, because we have people that use it for medical purposes, and we have Schedule I drugs, and because it was listed as schedule and they've lowered it finally, you couldn't take that and go to work in certain places because of safety risks. So it hindered people from using a drug that was less dangerous to them as other Schedule I drugs and for their bodies and to go to work. And they couldn't change those things. They could say with these other drugs, well, if it's not Schedule I, if you don't take it within 8 hours of the start of your shift, you can go to work and work. Where with the other, if you don't take it before the start of your shift, well, we can't let you go to work. And we don't, have better standards or better testing for it because we don't allow research on it because of where it was. So more in-depth things like that. But no, I think you're going to hear yes on a lot of these different questions from both of us.
Perfect. Thank you both.
Well, I think I'm trying to find one that would maybe have y'all have
Did
a
they
differing.
just run through most of yours, Oklahoma?
No, well, he did run a couple, but I'm going to run through them anyway. All right. Should Election Day be a holiday?
Yes.
Yeah. Yes, and it should be a Saturday, just FYI, not on a Tuesday, on a Saturday.
Agreed.
We'll let them off on Friday.
Should the federal government have any role in abortion access?
No.
Oh, wait. Well, I guess that's not really a yes or no. Sorry. Well, yeah. Should the federal government have any role in abortion access?
Oh, well, I guess. Yes, I think so, because I think we should codify Roe again. Not again, but codify Roe and put it in the law. I think our federal government really needs to stay out of the examination room. That should be between the woman and the doctor, and not our federal government.
Yeah, and I would say that we need to, repeal the Hyde Amendment. We need to recodify Roe, and we need to make sure that people who are on Medicaid have access to abortion. When you say that we are not going to fund abortions because it's federally funded through Medicaid, that's just class warfare, and that's not something we're tolerating any longer. So yeah.
Yeah, Hyde would have to go, because if we truly get to where we have healthcare for all, then that would be the excuse there as well. Well, we can't pay for healthcare because it's federal money.
So do you support the Affordable Care Act?
Okay. This is going to require just a little bit longer of an answer, if you don't mind, maybe like a minute. So the Affordable Care Act, for sure, I like it because it has lifted a lot of people from having no insurance to having some insurance and having some access, but it's not perfect. And the subsidies prove that. The fact that we are dumping so much money into the pockets of insurance companies should disgust everybody on both sides of the aisle. And so I think that while we can support this in the short term, we have to be looking at a single payer system like Medicare for all so that we can lower costs across the board and make sure that everybody has access without having to have these recurring discussions about subsidies. We'll take out the middleman. We'll just, we'll cut out the bloat. But that's kind of how I feel about that. So yes and no.
Perfect.
Yeah, it needs changed. I mean, to say that I support it completely, no, it's a broken system that's not where it needs to be. I mean, it was a start that got watered down, and we need to have health care as a right. It needs to be for all Americans, and we can pay for that in many different directions. I have an American Dreams Act that I've put together. It's on my website that helps explain ways of doing that. So we need to look at other ways.
Perfect. Should hate crime laws be expanded?
Yes, I believe so. They need to be more heavily penalized.
Should private prisons be banned?
Yes.
And I think we already asked this. And this is either or, Sooners or Cowboys? Thank you,
Sooner.
Stacey.
Boomer Sooner, baby. Like, listen, come on. If the Cowboys had won more than one game, I would have been like, hey, go Pokes. But I'm Sooners all the way.
I'm going to say go Pokes one time in my life. When my son graduates from Oklahoma State.
There you go.
Now, see,
when he crosses that stage, I will wear orange and black, and I will give a go Pokes and have a picture with Pistol Pete.
Yes, my niece is a sophomore at OSU right now, and I'm in the same boat with Brandon. I'll be there supporting her, but that'll be the only time for sure.
It won't be on the football field, that's for sure.
No, it will not. No, sir. No.
Excellent. Elisa, are we down to our closing question?
We are.
Okay. So this is our closing question. This allows you 90 seconds. We'll start with who did we start with?
I think it's Brandon's turn to go first.
Okay, we'll start with Brandon. Mr. Wade, what does accountability mean to you, and how will your campaign embody it?
I think it's pretty clear and simple in my mind what accountability is. Accountability is being responsible for your choices and how you vote and do things. I mean, right or wrong, you need to be held accountable for that, and you need to own accountability for what you do in your actions. So I feel that you must be held accountable for what we do and say. Just like I told you, all three branches need to be held in check, and each of them need to hold each other accountable. Even the office of president needs to be held accountable. So my pledge to Oklahomans is I want to be held accountable by them. I want to represent the constituents of CD2, and I want to vote in the way that they tell me to vote. I want to hear from them, and you can't please everybody. I learned that as a union guy. You can't please everybody, but you have to work for the best of the majority of the body. And to do that, you have to be in touch with the people. So you have to know what they need and what they want. When I get elected and put into office, I want to hold weekly meetings with the party leaders of CD2. And when I say party leaders, that means all of the parties within Oklahoma, because to be a leader and be a representative, you have to represent everybody within your district, regardless of what political party they are. I firmly believe in being held accountable by everybody, not just the party that I'm running for. I don't work for a party, I work for the people. So that is what my campaign will do. They will hold ourselves accountable for our actions and what we do and how we vote. And if we don't vote one way that we should, or if the people don't agree with what we're doing, then they need to be in contact with us. We need to stay in constant contact with them. Have real town hall meetings where we hear from our constituents what they need us to do and how they need us to take care of things for them. So we know truly how they want you to vote when those votes come up. Because that's your job. When you're elected as a representative, you're supposed to represent the people. You have to be in touch with them, and they have to hold you accountable. If you don't do the job you're supposed to do, they need to fire you and remove you from office, and that's what's going to happen with Jasper King.
Perfect. Mr. Terwey, what does accountability mean to you, and how will your campaign embody it? 90 seconds.
So thank you so much for having me tonight. I really appreciate the opportunity to be here. Accountability means showing up, not just during election season, but every day. It means being transparent about who funds our campaign, what compromises I will and won't make, and admitting when I'm wrong. This campaign embodies accountability through weekly online lives on TikTok and Facebook, transparent fundraising with no corporate PAC money accepted, and clear commitments in writing that you can hold me to. But accountability also means that understanding that I work for you, not the other way around. My job is to be your voice and tool in Congress, not to ask you to trust me and vote for me and then disappear. That means regular town halls, accessible office hours, and organizing support for movements that push me further than I might go on my own. Real accountability is collective. It's built through relationships, through showing up in struggle, through being present when it's hard. I'm asking for your vote, but more than that, I'm asking you to organize with me. to push me to build power together. Because transformative change doesn't come from one person in Congress. It comes from movements that make the impossible inevitable. That's the accountability I'm committed to. Thank you, guys. If you want to know more, visit terwayforcongress.com.
Perfect. Thank you so much. Michael, did you have any lasting questions or comments?
I think we hit on all of it, and I just want to make a statement. It's nice and refreshing to see a civilized political debate. It is nice and refreshing. I haven't seen one in years. So thank you guys for being so respectful of each other's time and everybody's statements and questions.
Thank you all for having us. It's important to do this, and we thank you all for doing that. Like I said, it's an honor to be running this race and to share a primary with somebody from my hometown here in Washington County as well. So CD2 is going to be well represented.
It is. Ditto. Thank you. And good luck to you, Brandon. Really, the best of luck.
Thank you, Erik.
Absolutely.
I just want to say I am so grateful that I'm not in this district, because at this point, like, I want to send both of you to DC. Like, the team that like, thank you. Like, unbelievable. The humanity, the consideration for each other, the knowledge of each other, and the professionalism. Just. And in Oklahoma, I think this is a first. So again, thank you. And whichever one of you wins, Oklahomans are going to be way better off. So let's get Burkine gone.
Yes.
Thank you for taking it on.
Absolutely.
Sorry.
No, you're good. Thank you. Brandon Wade, Erik Terwey, thank you for showing up, engaging thoughtfully, and keeping this a respectful conversation. This was an excellent and tasteful debate. And we really, truly appreciate your time, preparation, and professionalism you both brought to the table. And to everyone who tuned in and participated, thank you for being part of the conversation. You know, civic engagement starts with listening, asking questions, and staying informed. We appreciate you spending your evening with us on Humpday Exchange. Thank you guys so much.
Dance us out, Oklahoma.
Grab your neighbor and pull up a chair, 'cause we got a lot to say about the world out there at the Humpday Exchange. Today. Oh, yeah.
Thank you so much, gentlemen.
Thank
Good luck to you both.
Next week, our guest is Jeff Pixley, who is taking on Tom Cole. So,
Woo woo.
Bye, district.
see you then. Thank you so much.
Thank you guys.
Good night, Oklahoma.